Welcome to Howe Sound and the Sea to Sky Marine Trail. I'm Steve Best, the Howe Sound Site Steward for the Sea Kayak Association of BC. I was asked to put together a presentation on our marine trail campsites, so I'm going to be talking about Howe Sound and the creation and current status of the Sea to Sky Marine Trail. Highway 99, the Sea to Sky Highway, is one of the most spectacular drives in the world. And that's because Howe Sound is one of the most spectacular seascapes in the world, and it's right on our doorstep. But until recently, it hasn't been all that popular with paddlers, and it is only now beginning to come into its own as a sea kayaking location. The Sound was once badly polluted, with a pulp mill at Port Mellon, another pulp mill at Woodfibre, and a copper mine at Britannia Beach, which closed in 1974, but runoff still polluted the Sound. The Woodfibre pulp mill closed in 2006. And also in 2006, the Britannia Beach Mine water treatment plant became operational, and the Sound really began to recover, with the only remaining major polluter being the pulp mill at Port Mellon. Wildlife has come back in a big way, with lots of sea lions, eagles, and visits from orcas, dolphins, and humpback whales. Another reason Howe Sound hasn't been more popular with kayakers is that it has a reputation as an intimidating place to paddle. And deservedly so. People have died kayaking in Howe Sound when strong conditions came up, so it has to be treated with respect. Howe Sound is a giant, steep-sided funnel leading to a pass into BC's interior, and there aren't a lot of places to get off the water. There are only two wind directions in Howe Sound, inflow and outflow, and both can get really strong. When it's sunny and warm, the BC interior heats up and sucks cooler air up Howe Sound from the Strait of Georgia. This is a typical spring or summer sunny afternoon on the Squamish waterfront, which makes it a mecca for sailors and kiteboarders, like this guy on a hydrofoil kiteboard. And if you've got a kite for your kayak, you can get in on the fun. The Sea to Sky Marine Trail had its start in 2010 when the Trans-Canada Trail, now called the Great Trail, wanted to connect their trailhead in Squamish to the ferry terminal in West Vancouver as part of a trail connecting Victoria to Tuktoyaktuk. The Howe Sound Crest Trail was considered too hairy for the Trans-Canada Trail, and the shores of Howe Sound were too steep for a land trail, so they partnered with the BC Marine Trail Network Association to create a marine trail to Squamish. The result is the Sea to Sky Marine Trail. The lead volunteers from BC Marine Trails were Mick Allen, South Coast Region Manager, and Nick Heath, Director. The coastline of Howe Sound was thoroughly scouted for potential sites, and land title was investigated. Some work, like signs, geotechnical investigations, hazard tree removal, and some site work, was done by contractors. And lots of work was done by volunteer labor. On June 14, 2015, the trail had its grand opening, with the participation of the Squamish First Nation and the Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia. In March of 2017, SKABC entered a partnership agreement with Recreation Sites and Trails BC to maintain the newly created campsites. The trail includes 7 main launch sites: Horseshoe Bay, or any of the other West Vancouver launch sites; Snug Cove on Bowen Island, if you happen to be on Bowen Island; Gibson's; McNair Creek Park in Port Mellon; Porto Cove; Britannia Beach; and Squamish. You will use these launch sites to get to the 9 campsites in Howe Sound. 3 of them were already existing provincial parks: Porto Cove Provincial Park, Halkett Bay Marine Park on Gambier Island, and Plumper Cove Marine Park on Keats Island. There's also a regional park on Gambier Island that has camping, called Sir Thomas Lipton Park, but it didn't make the map. But what we're talking about here are the 6 newly created recreation sites. The east side of Howe Sound is bordered by a rail line and the highway, so, not surprisingly, the sites are all on the other side, either on Gambier Island or the west side of Howe Sound. These sites are what make the Sea to Sky Marine Trail possible, and these are the sites that SKABC has agreed to be responsible for maintaining. They are Ramillies Channel on Gambier Island, Bain Creek, Thornborough Channel, Islet View, Zoro Bay, and Tantalus Landing. Most people get to most of these sites by launching at Porto Cove. This is the view from the pier at Porto Cove, which was built as an emergency ferry dock, but it has been done in a way that makes it a really nice public amenity. There are 2 concrete boat launch ramps, or, if you prefer, there are beaches on either side of the main parking area. The launch ramps sometimes have drift logs, which can be handy for launching your kayak. So, let's check out the sites. We'll start with Ramillies Channel on Gambier Island. We've got a south wind today, so we'll hug the east shore of Howe Sound and cross to Anvil Island at the narrowest point. There are cabins at the southeast end of Anvil Island. Here we're rounding the south end of Anvil Island, and just around the corner is Camp Daybreak, a Bible camp. Across Ramillies Channel on Gambier Island, there's the beach at the Ramillies Channel Recreation Site ahead. It's a nice beach to land on. Ramillies has one of the 2 good natural beaches among the 6 sites. A land title search determined that all but the south end of the beach is Crown land. The south end of the beach and the upland south of that is private, so we asked people not to go beyond the center of the beach. In 2015, a contractor was hired to put in signs at all of the sites, and at Ramillies, he also put in steps from the beach up to a level terrace. Ramillies required the least work of any of the sites to make it immediately usable. In 2017, the first year of SKABC's stewardship, it was decided to put in bear-proof food caches, or bear bins, at all of the sites using volunteer labor, after a previous project to put in food hanging wires was abandoned after 2 sites. The gentleman on the left is Alistair McCrone, the District Recreation Officer for Recreation Sites and Trails BC, and these are the food caches that RSTBC is putting in at some of their sites. So the club has already done a significant upgrade to the sites. Nick Heath led our volunteer effort. He purchased similar boxes at Summit Tools, painted them green, and led teams out to the sites in July of 2017 to install them. In this photo, you can see the other signs that the contractor installed at all of the sites. At Ramillies, the bear bin was installed using tree roots as a base. Here's a view of the beach. Partway up the beach from the far end is where the private land starts, so please don't go beyond the center of the beach. There's the name sign, and beside it are the steps up from the beach. The bottom step has toppled over in this photo and has since been repaired. The steps lead up to a long, level terrace that can take a number of tents. With the food cache at the north end of the terrace. A short trail leads from the south end of the terrace to several tent sites on the beach above high tide. A little way down the beach is a small upland tent site. And here are a couple of shots of people camped at Ramillies. In this case, on the beach below the terrace, which is okay at most tides. Bain Creek is the farthest site. So today we'll paddle past the north end of Anvil Island to the more remote part of Howe Sound on the far side of Anvil. Coming in to the boat run. There's the sign on the left, but I have to tell you that this landing is hard to spot. On my first visit to the site, I paddled right past it before my GPS told me I'd gone too far. Currently, there's nowhere to store kayaks above high tide without taking them up the bank, so kayak storage might be a project for this site. Originally, it was a boulder beach to begin with. But with some hard work by volunteers, a boat run was cleared. Here you see a come-along anchored to a tree being used to move boulders and, to the right, a couple of pry bars and a pickaxe. And the result is a boat run through the boulder field. Again, on SKABC's watch, a bear bin was installed. In this case, concrete sonotube footings were used. Just above the boat run are access stairs and a short trail to the main clearing. Tents in the clearing and the completed bear bin. There's a beautiful waterfall beside the clearing. A trail that could use some trail work leads up the hill to a clearing at the top of a bluff. With a great view and room for a few tents. Near the bluff, there are benchlands where there are more potential tent sites. It's inevitable that some people are going to want fires, and at Bain, the only suitable location is on the rock bluff. You can see where fires have damaged the moss on the bluff, so we are looking at putting in a steel fire ring on the bluff. About 5 kilometers up the coast from Bain is Thornborough Channel. Here we're heading up the coast from Bain. Past McNab Creek, site of the contentious proposed Burnco gravel pit, and the Thornborough Channel site is dead ahead, at the end of some high cliffs. There's the landing on the right, and to the left, just to the west, some high rocky bluffs. There's a cleared boat run just below the sign to make for a good landing. A trail leads from the site sign across a steep slope, with 2 tent sites carved out of the slope just off the trail. The bear bin is just below the main trail. The trail down to the bin needs work, and the hummock behind the bin, which was home to a wasp nest the previous summer, has since been cut back. This is a full-grown cougar we encountered at Thornborough during our August table delivery to the site, so you want to be wildlife aware at any of these sites. Let's continue along the trail. The creek crossing and trails in general at this site could use some work. Up the hill, you come to the real feature of this site, the high rock bluffs. Which make for some awesome campsites, with room for several tents. Islet View is the closest site to Porto Cove, and also the smallest of the 6 sites. Another boulder beach to start with. More hard work by volunteers created another excellent boat run. Coming in to land at Islet View, and the little channel is filled with seals, a regular seal party. Heading up from the boat run and past the sight sign, there's a leveled tent pad beside the main clearing, and room for a couple of more tents in the main clearing itself. There's the view, and there's the bear bin. The immediate priority for Islet View will be the creation of more tent pads, potentially to the east of the clearing, and also to the west. Atop a bluff at the west end of the site is a bench that could take a few tents if an access trail were built. Zoro Bay is another 4 kilometers up the coast from Islet View and has the best beach of the 6 sites. Zoro Bay will be the site of this year's main upgrade project, the addition of a composting toilet. Zoro Bay is formed by a rocky headland sticking out from the Howe Sound shore. Our site is the beach and upland north of the large wharf. Initial volunteer work involved building a trail up the slope and carving out tent sites. A bear bin was installed in 2017 using concrete sonotube footings. Here we're approaching the headland from the south, with the south beach to the left of the headland. Rounding the headland, the beach coming into view. And coming into land. There's the headland, the wharf, the beach, the trail up to the tent sites, more beach, and a view of Britannia Beach across the sound. There's a cabin on the headland, which has recently been sold. The top of the beach. A couple of tents could go here, though maybe not at spring tides. The trail up the hill, past the bear bin, and leading to 4 tent sites. More leveling is needed at some of the sites, and more could be added with some brushing and leveling. When we met with the district recreation officer this March to discuss putting in a toilet at this site, it was agreed to proceed with a Toilet Tech composting toilet, similar to this one at Twin Islands Park in Indian Arm. The Toilet Tech toilet requires very low maintenance, and because it is all above ground, no archaeological assessment is necessary. At the meeting, it was thought that the toilet might go on the isthmus, but it was subsequently determined that the isthmus and the South Beach are private land co-owned by the 18 cabin owners on the headland and south of the South Beach. Our site is outlined in green on this plan. So we visited the site in August with the contractor who will be doing the install and selected a location for the toilet. After various holdups over the course of the summer, it looks like the toilet will be installed in the next couple of weeks. If all goes as expected, we hope to start with toilets for the other sites next year. This is the coastline north of Zoro Bay, which features high rock cliffs, followed by wood fiber. The most northerly site is Tantalus Landing, 10 kilometers up the coast from Zoro Bay, but only 4.5 kilometers from the Squamish waterfront. So, let's take a look at launching in Squamish. Squamish lies at the very north end of Howe Sound. Right now, the best launch spot is this little protected beach next to Newport Beach, just inside Mamquam Blind Channel. This whole part of the Squamish waterfront is going to be redeveloped as a huge mixed-use development with an oceanfront park at the end. We are talking to the District of Squamish and the developer to ensure that the oceanfront park includes a good kayak launch, drop-off, and overnight parking. While the oceanfront park is under construction, the best launch option will probably be a little beach at the Squamish Paddling Club, 1.7 kilometers up the channel. That's the Squamish Paddling Club boathouse with the red roof. Launching at the beach at the Paddling Club, and launching at the other beach just inside the mouth of the channel. The Squamish waterfront is a working waterfront with log sorts and booming grounds on both sides of the channel. And you might encounter paddlers from the Squamish First Nation out paddling one of their canoes. Between the mouth of the channel and the mouth of the Squamish River is Squamish Terminals, where a couple of freighters can dock at a time. That's the end of the spit where the kiteboarders launch, and the mouth of the Squamish River. There's a shallow bar on the east side of the river mouth, and this can be a scary place when there's a high flow down the river meeting a south wind. The cliffs on the other side of the river. Then it's 2.5 kilometers along the shore to Tantalus Landing. Tantalus was the most challenging site to provide with a boat run, with large boulders needing to be moved, and a contractor removed a large sideways tree that was blocking access to the site. Approaching Tantalus Landing. and coming in to land on the boat run. There are still some really big boulders at high tide that should get moved, but they will take a lot of work. Above the boat run, a set of steps leads to a trail and the bear bin. Here's the Tantalus bear bin. Uphill from the bear bin is a high rock face. A tent pad has been leveled on a ledge against the rock face. Uphill from that, more tent pads could be leveled, and perhaps tent platforms built even higher. Back to the trail, past the bear bin, it leads down to a lovely creek. Across the creek, the trail carries on, past an alternate landing beach that's good at high tide. Here's landing at the alternate site at high tide. And all the beach grass makes for a soft landing. The trail carries on to the main clearing that can accommodate 3 or 4 tents, plus a large custom wood table on an existing concrete base, recently built by a team led by Randy Chatterjee. Next to the clearing is a rocky point that's a natural spot for a fire. Here's a couple of shots of camping in the clearing. Another view of the clearing and Randy's amazing table. The next priority for this site will be adding more tent sites. Beyond the clearing is a little rock bluff. 2 or 3 more tent sites might be possible at the top of the bluff. Off the main trail, a side trail leads up the hill east of the creek to a flat rock that could take a tent, and a small bench that could take a tent with some clearing and leveling. Farther up the hill are more benches that could be developed as tent sites if needed. That's it for our tour of the sites. Another project that happened this year is visitor logbooks for all the sites. In the past, we haven't known how much use the sites are getting. We need this information for our own planning and for the annual reports that we have to submit to SKABC. We installed them during our May 12th and 13th site visits. As you can see from these entries for Islet View, the sites are getting a fair bit of use. We also have an online visitor logbook, so people have that option, though it doesn't seem to be anywhere near as popular or useful as the logbooks at the sites. The last project we undertook this year is picnic tables for the 5 sites where Randy hasn't already built a giant custom table. The tables were built by Nick Heath out of recycled cedar decking, then taken apart and reassembled on site. We hope you enjoyed our tour of the Sea to Sky Marine Trail, and we look forward to seeing you out in Howe Sound.